written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know this topic is very near and dear to many of you out there, and so today we want to share some information. Why don't I go ahead and just introduce everybody that's up on stage, and then I will kick it off. So I'm Bill Cook. I am the General Manager at RCSC.
Mike Whipper, Director of Buildings and Infrastructure for RCSC.
I'm Corey Severson, the President of Pacific Aquascape.
Lon White, Regional Superintendent, Pacific Aquascape.
Kevin McCurdy, Finance Director, RCSC.
Brian Duthu, Director of Golf and Grounds.
So I'd like to start by going through some history and just get everybody in sync with what has been going on over the last 10 or 11 years with respect to the lake. So I want to say about 11 years ago, a study was done to determine the seepage at the lake, and Terracon was engaged in doing that and came back with a roughly 585 acre-feet of water of seepage on an annual basis. So to put that into perspective, that's enough water to water an 18-hole golf course in a year. So it's not an insignificant amount. At the time, the estimate was roughly $10 to $20 million to fix. So our prior general manager, Jan Eck, had gone down to Arizona Department of Water Resources and had asked for administrative relief. And what that is basically an allowance to allow for that seepage. So it was not counted against our water allotment. And at the time, due to the cost, the board did not make a decision to fix the lake at that time. So we've been under administrative relief, and you can't open up the newspaper or watch the news today without seeing the water issues that we're all experiencing here in Arizona and California. And so Arizona Department of Water Resources is now addressing that problem with respect to water. And so allotments for everybody in there in the state, including golf courses, is going to be reduced drastically. Roughly 30 to 40% is what that reduction is going to look like for us starting really in January of 2023 with the fourth management plan, and then January of 2025 with the fifth management plan. So at this point, we are legally bound and responsible to fix the lake in order to keep within the allotment that we are expecting with the fourth and fifth management plan. So we have no choice. We have to make this fix. So last year, in 2021, we engaged two engineering firms. One is actually the engineering side of the Pacific Aquascape. So these two gentlemen here are on the construction side. So we engaged their engineering side to do a study as to what the cost would be. So we actually had two engineering firms come in and do a study. And fortunately for us, the cost came in, considerably less than what we maybe had thought it would have been. Roughly $6 million is what both of them actually came in at. And so now we're going into the next phase, and so we've developed an RFP, so a request for proposal, and that was sent out to 7 different firms. And thank you, 6 different firms. And so we are now at a point where we've actually chosen, and so let me go into that request for proposal. So what we've done is we had incorporated all of, or as many of the concerns that the homeowners have had. So Marianne, your president, has been really doing a great job to communicate with me, and she's sent all of your concerns, and those have not gone unread, and we tried to incorporate all of those concerns into the RFP. And so Today, we now have a chosen construction firm to move forward with the repair. And so today, what we're going to do is have Pacific Aquascape come in and basically go through the timeline, and what you're going to see in that timeline is all of the milestones that address, I think many of the concerns that you would have. And then from there, what we'll do is we'll have a Q&A. And so what I would ask is that when we start the Q&A session is that we limit it to the homeowners first. Okay, so we'll take all of the questions from homeowners first, and then we'll open up to the floor. Okay, and just to let you know, this is being recorded, so just wanted to make sure that you guys are all aware of that. All right. So with that, I am going to kick it off to Corey and to Lon, and they are going to make a presentation as to what the next steps are. Okay. Thank you.
Can we turn on the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Do you guys have screens up here? I didn't see when we came in. Okay, on the sides. Okay. I only have a pointer that I can only point to one of those two. So when I point to something, I think I'm going to pick that one over there, but that's all I can do from this side. So as Bill said, we were the selected contractor for Viewpoint Lake. Thank you. For Viewpoint Lake Rehabilitation Renovation Project. We are a general engineering contractor and an engineer, both in-house. We're located in, our California office is located in Fountain Valley, and we have a regional office located in Phoenix. I'm the president of Pacific Aquascape, and I will be the project manager for this project. Lon White is our regional superintendent, and he'll be responsible for the day-to-day construction activities. Alex Kim is not here, but he's our engineering manager and will be responsible for primarily documentation and putting together all the contract documents that we have to comply with. So we have a wide range of both design and construction services, and we are a true in-house, at-risk design-build firm. We self-perform the majority of lake and lake construction work. We've been in business since 1996, been involved in over 700 projects, and built thousands of acres of lakes in the Arizona marketplace. And we really specialize in specific design build type work related to lakes, water features, pools, fountains, that type of work. We're a licensed general engineering contractor, like I said, and all of our stuff's part of the record that we submitted to RCSC. We're licensed as a firm, as an engineering firm in the state of Arizona, and I hold an individual engineering license. These are, some 180 plus projects that we've completed in the Arizona marketplace in the last 30 years or so. There's a couple of projects that are to note, and it's really hard for you to see this screen, but we have specific experience in projects just like Viewpoint Lake, where we have rehabilitated lakes, man-made lakes that were built 30, 40 years ago. They had liner issues, they had wall-related issues, and they had failures, and the lake had to be drained so that we could do the work. And so we have worked through draining lakes, dealing with wildlife relocations, dealing with noise, dirt, debris, the issues that come with these lakes, and we've done it in multiple locations in Arizona, the Continuum Project, the Tierra Verde Lake Project, a couple of projects that we did for RCSC at Willow Creek and Willowbrook golf courses. And we also did the ASU Research Park project where, again, these facilities were existing, homeowners are around them, and we were able to come in and do the same type scope of work. So in terms of organization, We work under a contract. Our contract is specific with RCSC. All of our direction flows through RCSC. And part of our responsibilities that were laid out in the RFP is to conduct and have meetings like we're having with you right now. But those interactions only happen in the presence of RCSC and with their involvement. So as the org chart shows that you can see, there's a number of stakeholders in this project, and the stakeholders are the homeowners and the surrounding property owners of the lake, and then the community at large as well. And so you all have interest and rights, of use and rights legally and all of the above. Those relationships are with RCSC, they're not with us. And so again, we're going to respect at all times that relationship. Our communication goes to RCSC, and we would request that your communication goes through RCSC as well, so that we can keep the paper records in place and keep them organized. We have a number of sub-consultants on the design side. Aquatic Consulting and Testing is a Arizona-based firm, specializes in water and wildlife issues. They're going to be helping and assisting us with the wildlife issue on this project. We've worked with them before on numerous projects. The Speedy and Associates is a geotechnical engineer. They'll be helping us with the grading and grading work that we're going to be doing inside the lake. And Benchmark Surveying is our land surveyor that will be helping us with construction staking and as-builts. So they're all sub-consultants of ours on the design side, pre-construction side, and they'll also be involved through the construction phase of the project. Lon will run our construction and construction activities, all of our day-to-day work, so that'll all flow through Lon. And we will have some subcontractors in the field as well in terms of trucking and disposal of materials and that type of work. The liner and the lake construction, those things are primarily all self-performed. So, again, I kind of covered some of this, but we have experience in lake renovations. We've done this work before, and we've really seen and worked on all of the parts and pieces with your lake. Your lake is a large lake, 33 acres, has 10,000 feet of shoreline, and is going to take time to work through all of those various pieces. And this list has some of what those challenges are, but we're going to get into more specifics of those when we look at the detail of our schedule. And so this might be hard for you to see, but it runs through our timeline of what we have. And so the project was bid back in February. It was awarded pretty much on track with where we're at here. And we've got this pre-construction phase that's going to kick off, or has kicked off now. And we are working on a wildlife relocation plan where we put together and we identify waterfowl in the lake. So we're going to be looking at birds, the type of birds. We know they're swans, and then we know we have fish in the lake. We know there's turtles in the lake, and so we know we have to deal with each one of these wildlife issues and have a plan for that, and in terms of how we're going to handle it prior to us draining the lake. So we're going to develop that plan as we work through our pre-construction phase. Basically, by the end of March, by the end of May, we're going to submit a 60% plan. So a 60% plan is a construction plan that has identified all of the significant scope of work items where we will have laid out what the lake, where our lake access points are going to be. We're going to do individual lot surveys on every single property that's around the edge of the lake to identify the fence location, docks if they exist, any landscape materials, all of these things, so we can have a very good record to work from. We will put together, again, how we access the plant, the project, where we're going to put fences at to contain the lake and prevent entry while we're doing the work. How we're going to drain the lake, where we're going to drain the lake to and dispose of the water, how's that going to be handled. what are we going to do with silt and the silt material, how we're going to handle the shoreline installation, the dock reinstallation. We're going to develop plans specific for each of those so that we can share them with RCSC, and their intention is to share them then with you so that everyone has a clear understanding of the scope and what the project is, and understand the time frame and how it fits together of when these pieces fit. So once we submit in late May, we will allow RCSC time to review the plans, review them with you, however that happens, the discussion that happens with the community. Again, we're part of that, but it goes through RCSC. And then once we come back with your comments, we'll take those comments, put them together into a final plan submittal that is scheduled for around the end of August, or excuse me, the end of July. And at the same time be submitting them into the county agencies that are required to get permits. And once we have those in place, we anticipate a start of construction somewhere in the end of August, 1st of September, actual physical construction. We will have started draining the lake in advance of that. So the milestone date, I guess it's hard for me to read what's on the screen up there, so I apologize for that. There will be I think there's 2 more homeowner meetings that we have planned. One that'll be at the 60% review, and then one that'll be at the final plan review. And if there are additional meetings, they'll be coordinated through our RCSC, and we've agreed to accommodate as many meetings are necessary or required during the process. And then once we get to the construction phase, again, it's going to be in the right around the 1st of September is where the physical construction will happen, and construction equipment will show up on site and start to physically do work. It's roughly a 9-month construction window. The intention is to start filling the lake again by the April timeframe, but it takes a considerable amount of time to refill this lake, and approximately 2 months to fill the lake up. So the goal is to have it operational again by June of next year. And so, Lon, I don't know if you wanted to speak to, or if you can see any of that stuff. It's pretty small up there.
Can't see any of it. So anyhow, I just was going to touch base a little bit on our construction and how that all looks as it's taking place. As Corey first mentioned, we're going to start with the water loss. And so there's going to be seepage loss, and there's going to be evaporation loss, and we're going to pump water to West Lake Golf Course?
Lakes West.
Lakes West, excuse me. So that's going to take up the very first part of the project, and in the meantime, we're going to be looking at the docks that are around the lake. We have to remove the floating docks first, and then we're going to be looking at the wildlife removal as that's taking place, because of course as lower the water gets, the easier it is to remove fish and turtles that are in there. As we get the lake substantially drained, we're actually going to break the lake up into 3 sections right now, which we believe is probably the plan as we see fit. It might change a little bit, but 3 sections, and we're going to work in the 3 different sections at different times, and maybe at the same time. We will start with the demo of the shoreline and the existing materials, liner, fish structure. We will remove those materials, and then that crew will move into the next section, and they'll start that same thing. And in the meantime, we're going to start grading on the first section. We have to rebuild the slopes to meet the criteria for the safety in Maricopa County. And after that takes place, we install the new liner on the slopes, we install the new concrete, After that takes place, we're going to be reinstalling the existing docks that we need to reinstall. Some of them we've looked at can be saved, some of them can't be saved, but any ones that we can put back in at that time, we'll put back in. As we start working our way out of the bottom, we start lining the bottom, the fish structure areas first. We put in the fish habitats. We finish that work. We finish with the liner, and that portion of the lake is closed up at that point. And then we just keep proceeding around the lake, chasing it out.
And if I could add, I know this is a topic that's probably on your mind, is when do the boats have to be removed? So if this plan, as laid out, is true, then right now our goal is to start draining by July 1st. Okay, so at that point, once we start draining, so as of today, but there's a lot of things that have to happen until that actually comes true. But as of now, July 1st will be the date that we want boats out. Okay.
And then once we complete liner and all the liner installations, there's a little bit of testing that takes place just to confirm that all the work's in place. We've done testing of all the compacted slopes and all the grading along the way. The liner is certified at the end with the final test, and then we would, again, refill the lake and take down fences and return the site to what it looks like. The intention on the, I think we have some photos to follow here. So this is just a quick slide that shows perhaps where the 3 phase lines are at. This was an early concept, or our initial concept, that we submitted with the proposal. The lines, perhaps may change. It'll depend on as we go through the planning phase and we really dial in how we're going to approach the job and what we're going to do. So this plan will be updated. The most likely entrance for construction and trucking will be, I think it's 105th Avenue? Yeah, 105th Avenue is it runs into where the boat ramp is, if you're familiar with where the boat ramp is today. That'll be the most likely entry for trucks that are going in and out of the lake. Probably the only spot that will go in and out of the lake will be that one location. When we're draining the lake, we probably have trucks that will be on the north side of the lake. I can't remember the name of the street, but it's between Lakes West and the, which one's it?
Cameo.
It's this top street right here. I don't know what the name is.
It's
Cameo Drive. So potentially Cameo Drive, potentially the overflow location where this side right here. And those are things that we have to work through to make sure that we can get the trucks we want to get in there, that they'll fit, that it works with the overall plan that's going to be approved. Again, we have to submit this to RCSC and get it approved before we're going to move forward. But we have to get the lake sludge out of the lake, and that's done with a Vector truck that pulls that material up. And it'd be difficult to do if we only do it in the one location. So from a cost savings point of view, it makes sense to get at it from every available location that we can find. And right now there's those 3, and potentially also over by where the lawn bowling is, if that'll work. I don't know if that'll work or not. So we're gonna have to figure those things out. I have a series of photos that we'd like to share. We took these 2 weeks ago. We were out on the RCSC pontoon, and we drove around, looked at the entire perimeter of the lake, and we saw a half a dozen or more conditions that are typical. Not anything specific about this one house or this boat, it's just a typical condition. So this condition shows a fence that's in proximity to the shoreline, but the fence is behind and offset. So there's a band of gravel material that's on the ground that you can see. This fence is probably okay and doesn't need to be disturbed for us to do our work. The dock in this location is a very viable dock. It's in what appears to be great condition. We didn't get out and get on it. We don't know. But looking at it just on the boat, it looks like a great dock. And so we have two choices when we come to docks. We either have to remove them so that we have to remove this concrete shoreline in order to do the work. When we remove this concrete shoreline, we have to grade and reinstall a new shoreline. And so some docks we're able to work under and around, and some docks we are not able to work under and around. Some docks are in very poor repair and have had little or no maintenance to them over the years. Some docks appear to be almost new. So there's a wide variety of docks out there, just like there's a wide variety of edge and shoreline conditions. And so we're going to evaluate these on a lot-by-lot basis, and that will be coordinated through RCSC and yourselves if you're the homeowner of each lot. And so we will develop a plan on what we're going to do with the dock. And so again, right now we don't know, but this is an example of what looks like a good dock and a good fence. So maybe a little bit harder to see, but this fence is built right on top of the concrete wall. The concrete wall is coming out, which means the fence is going to come out with it because the fence is attached to the top of the wall. These are issues that have to be worked through and are part of our pre-construction process. There are easements in place that allow for RCSC maintenance and lake improvements, and so all of that has to get worked through to figure out how this fence is dealt with at the end of the day. But this fence is going to have to be removed in order for us to do our work. Here's a photo of what appears to be a dock that's in poor repair. You can see it listing to the right. It appears that it's either been run into or it's just worn out and needs in need of repair. Here's a photograph that shows some landscaping materials, sculpture of a turtle. The fence is probably in great location because the fence is set back, but the landscape materials obviously draping over the top of the shoreline. And then the turtle is something that has to be really investigated. We don't, obviously no one wants to have that damaged, so we have to figure out, is it safe where it's sitting or does it have to be moved? What has to happen to something like that? That's part of our work through that we're going to do as we go through our 60% plan, is to identify this condition in each and every lot and then come up with an approach of how we're going to deal with it and what needs to happen, what are the options. Here's a homeowner that has a paver the pavers are actually stacked on top of the concrete wall, and then the fence is built on top of those pavers. It currently looks like all of that has to come out. We don't see how that would stay because once we pull the concrete apart, the support's all going to be gone and the pavers are going to drop on their own. So it needs to come apart in a planned fashion in order to make the work go. Another condition where it's a different type of paver, but the pavers are stacked on top. So you can see there, and you guys are more aware of this than us probably. If you've been on the lake, there's a lot of different conditions virtually everywhere. There's, kind of something different. Here we've got kind of the closest dock. To the left of it, we have a CMU masonry slump block type wall. That wall's probably fine as long as the footing is low enough that when we take away the edge, the wall isn't affected. We believe it probably is okay, but we don't know that right now. Something has to be investigated. And then there's kind of down the line, as you look down the edge of the shoreline, you can see a different type of wall, but it's the same idea. It's built, kind of right on the edge. So all of these are going to be, looked at in terms of what they are. There are a couple of trees. I should have taken more photos than I did, but when I got back, I didn't have pictures of everything. But there where trees are causing damage to the lake edge. And then we have these, again, here we have like landscape boulders. All of this is material that has to be moved. The trees either have to come out or the edge has to be built different to accommodate these trees. So we have to work through these type issues in terms of either move the shoreline over or the tree has to come out. And again, the material is going to be identified and then a plan will be developed for how it's going to be worked on. That's the last photo I have.
So I think the bottom line is that with respect to the shoreline, if any of your fencing or landscaping encroaches into the easement, then that has to be removed. And then, especially if it's built into the actual cement wall, that absolutely will, have to be addressed. And what we're hoping to see is most of the docks are either, we can work around or we can pull off and store and replace. That's our plan. But until we do an assessment of every single lot, we don't know. So that is the current plan. And I think what you can assume is that, there is an easement around the lake, on the shoreline. We don't know exactly what that is. I think it varies depending on what phase of the development of the housing around the lake, but that's part of the assessment process. I believe the minimum will probably be at least 6 feet, but I can't tell you what it's going to be for each individual lot. So as we do the assessments, we will determine what the process will be to remove that wall abutting up to your property. Okay. So with that, I'll open it up to Q&A. So if you want to actually, the microphone up here so that we can hear you, if you want to, kind of how we do it up at the board meetings, if you want to sit in the front row so you don't have to stand up, and kind of line up on what your questions are, we can do it that way. Yes, sir.
John Herrick, I'm on Bayside. Question, what provisions are being made, if any, for the boats?
So the boats are going to be the boat owner's responsibility to remove from the lake. Now we have, Mary Ann has sent something out to each one of the homeowners. There is a storage solution that I think will work. So I would encourage you to look at your emails on that, but we can certainly discuss that after this meeting.
And is the removal of the boats and the bringing them back our personal expense?
That is, yes.
Nitty gritty, where is the new water coming from? And also, can the state say, no, we're in a drought?
So the new water will come from the pump that we currently utilize to fill the lake.
You're recycling the water.
We are not recycling. We are actually going to use the water that's in there. So we're going to drain it naturally, which actually saves us quite a bit of money. So it's a good plan. We're planning this so that we can hit our overseed of lakes east, and so that uses a lot of water. So we're going to drain the lake naturally through seepage, through evaporation, and through the watering of our golf course.
And can the state interfere?
The state interfere in what way?
We are in a drought.
No, so I actually have reviewed this, and the 4th and 5th management plan allows for the refilling of a lake when you do repairs. So it would not go against our allocation, nor would they disallow something like that. So we would be allowed to do that.
Okay, I'll say a prayer.
Thank you. We will need it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kara Camilli. I'm on Bayside and Cameo, and we will remove Louis Turtle for you.
Ah, okay.
My dad made that. So we'll have that removed.
Thank you.
The thing I wanted to ask about was, we had that security meeting at 10, and they were
Yes.
talking, and
Yes.
the Showa and the posse and everybody, they're going around and they're doing some more night patrols. What I was wondering is, while we're doing the lake, is it possible to have some more security around there, because of the boats and this and that?
So we, actually, that was a discussion that we had. I believe there is going to be fencing that is going to be put up, so that should mitigate anybody from going into the lake, is what we're hoping. But that's something that we will definitely look at.
But I mean the outer, like our, outside of our houses.
Meaning that where your property line
Well, where
abuts
we
up to the lake?
where we might put our boat.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Thank you.
In other words, they're more
So, yes,
susceptible.
so I think that's something that we could probably work with the posse
Okay.
to maybe help with that as well.
Okay. And then one last thing, as far as the docks, I'm hoping that ours is one that you can work under, but if not, how can we be assured that you're not going to lose any hardware? That's what I'm worried about. I want to put it back together the same way.
So, yes, so that's that's our objective, is to take it and put it back in the same condition that it was, provided that it's still in reasonably good
Well,
condition.
yeah, we just had it built. It's
Okay,
brand
yeah,
new.
no, we will make sure that it gets put back. I
Okay.
mean, that's their commitment.
And
They've made
that's
that
all I'm
commitment.
concerned about. I just don't want any mischief around the lake and
Yeah.
around the property and all
Right,
that stuff.
understood.
And I have 26 cameras.
Okay, well, that helps.
We're watching.
So if there is any mischief, we can come to you
That's
for
right.
footage then? Okay,
I'm serious. Ring cameras and CCTV. too.
that's great.
But I'm from
that's good
LA,
stuff.
that's why, so.
Okay.
The land of the lost. Yeah, we had our golf cart tipped over in the front yard. I had a motor, a trolling motor and fishing poles stolen off of the boat. What else? There's just a lot of mischief. We've had people looking over I have the wall on Cameo with a gate. And we have people looking over the fence in the middle of the night.
So hopefully you picked up some good points this morning. That was actually a pretty good presentation.
Yeah, it was really
they
a
did a good job.
presentation. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill, I have a couple things to clarify right there.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So regarding the fencing, I probably didn't cover it, but we're going to fence every part of the lake that's open to the public. So from the condos all along the face of the park, all along RCSC, Viewpoint property, all along until we tie into that first property corner on the other side, we're going to put a temporary 5 or 6 foot high chain link fence up across that. On Cameo Drive, we're going to be fencing off that entire edge from home to home. And then
Build a really pretty waterfall.
not current.
Can you fund it?
In individual yards, we will, like if we're going to take your dock out, for example, if you already have a fence and we take your dock out, we will put a fence across the face of your dock so that that's closed off. If you happen to live on a property that does not have a fence, we're going to be putting a fence in your backyard, because when you walk out in your backyard now, there's going to be a construction site out the back of your home. So we are putting up a fence, and that, again, that's going to be documented on our plan set. You'll know about it before it happens. As long as you pay attention to what's being told to you and you look at the plans, you'll know about it. Relative to your questions about the docks and the docks, we're going to look at each dock. We're going to look at each yard. We're going to videotape and as-built survey that information so that we know the elevations that everything's at, the location that everything is at, and the purpose. And we're going to videotape it so that we all understand what the condition of it is, because we aren't going to give you anything back that's in worse shape than what it was to begin with. Our goal is to make it right and put it back the way that we find it. So that's the purpose of the survey. That's the purpose of the video documentation. And I think those were the 3 points I wanted to clarify.
Anything else? Okay.
Hi, I'm Tim Blodek. I live on the lake, and a couple questions. I've heard that the slope will be changing on the lake, and I just learned today from your comments that that's based on the county, I believe you said, or state. Anyway, somebody determined that the slope needs to change. I'd like to know what that slope is, and mainly because of the way our dock situation is situated. we had restrictions about how far out we could extend into the lake. And my concern is if that slope is too shallow of a slope, could have boat bottoms bottoming out. I have a floating dock, and as the lake moves up and down, my dock goes up and down. I'm concerned about whether that'll still float or if that's going to be a problem. So can somebody tell me about the slope angle?
What secures your floating dock? That's the
I'm
first
sorry?
question. What secures your floating dock? Is it piers or is it?
No, it's on pipes coming off the rigid dock.
Yeah, I took pictures of that one. We just didn't put them in here, but yeah. So the Maricopa County has a standard that is 18 inches of water depth at the shoreline, and right now this lake is somewhere that's in the range. It varies between, from what we can tell, we haven't seen the bottom and we haven't shot everything, but it varies from more like 2 to 3 feet in depth along the edge as opposed to the 18 inches. And then their standard section is 1 foot of slope in 12 feet, which is not going to work with with the boats that we have. So part of our permitting process is to work in a hybrid solution that's going to give them, the expectation is if you end up in the water that you can stand up and figure out how to get out of the lake. And so that's their concern, and that's where that comes from. And then there's a long history of lake and lake construction that puts the lake depth at about 18 inches along the edge everywhere. So that's our intention, is to regrade to an 18-inch water depth at the water line, and then start with a 3-to-1 slope away from that. Part of our work is to verify that that works with the dock rules that are allowed by RCSC. So RCSC has rules on the type of floats that you can have, how they can be organized, what the type of boats that you can have in the water are. Our job is to confirm that all of that works with any proposed regrading that we do. So we're not going to grade the lake and have it not comply with the rules. It's going to comply with the agreements that are already in place. And we'll come back with more information on that in the May timeframe. But the intention is that the boats all work. We're aware of your concern, and we need to make sure we address it.
Okay. Excuse me. Second question. When you do remove a dock, where are those going to be stored?
Where we store it will depend on what we take apart, probably. If it can be palletized and stored on the lake bottom, that's what we'll do with it. We'll leave it inside the lake. Once we drain this lake, we're going to have 30 acres of dirt field. And so we may store them on the bottom. We may decide that we don't like how that works with what we have going on, in which case we would store them in an off-site yard that we have. We currently have a yard in Apache Junction, but we've had other yards over time that are, along the 101, and so we would find a spot that's a secure fence location. We're responsible for it. We're responsible to return it and reinstall it. And so if something happens to it, it's our responsibility to make it right. But most likely they're going to be stored in the lake bottom. That's what the intention is.
All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Christopherson from El Dorado. I had a question on the dock removal and all of the maintenance that's going into it and all of the side fencing and so on. Is that going to be at your cost and not at our cost at all?
Well, the docks is provided that they are in good working order and we can pull them apart and reinstall them. That's going to be at our cost. Fencing and landscaping that's inside the easement is going to be at the homeowner's expense, because if it's outside the easement, that should not interfere with any of the wall construction.
And the easement is 6 feet from where?
So we are going to do an assessment of every lot, so you will know exactly what your easement is after we do that.
Oh, okay, so we won't really know for sure.
That's correct. But
until then.
I can tell you that if it's hooked into the wall, it's in the easement. Okay, so, and I would use 6 feet as a general guideline, but don't quote me on that until we actually, because I know in some instances, we've looked at the county, and it's actually larger than that. So we are going to do an assessment of each lot to make sure that we have it accurately documented.
Okay, then my second question was, you're going to have the water that's going to be trucked over to Lakes West Golf Course?
No, we're actually, you know what, I'll let you guys answer that.
No, to get to Lakes West Golf Course, we're going to go backwards through the pipe that currently comes from Lake West. So the way that Viewpoint Lake is filled today, there are a couple of wells, but our understanding is the primary fill is a well that delivers water into a ditch or trench feature that runs through the Lakes West Golf Course and ultimately comes into Viewpoint Lake along Cameo Road. It comes under Cameo Road in a pipe. When we're going to return water to Lakes West Golf Course by pumping water through that pipe, and then on it with a temporary pipe above grade across the golf course back to the existing lake and pump station.
And Lake West Golf Course can take that whole amount of water?
Over time, yes. So that's why, in order to reduce costs, when we had budgeted this project 6 or 7 months ago, we had water disposal costs at over $400,000. Today, we've reduced that cost significantly, and our goal is to get it to almost zero, and that is to let what's happening now, the lake loses water to seepage. So the reason why we're stopped filling in on July 1 is to allow natural seepage to occur for 2 months. We'll lose about 66 acre-feet of water that way. And then Lakes West Golf Course uses round numbers 3 acre-feet of water per day, or 1 million gallons of water a day to irrigate the golf course. That's 90 acre-feet of water in a month. And so we want to get the water back to Lakes West Golf Course so they can use it to water the turf, and we don't have to pay to dispose of it.
Okay, fine.
And just to add to that, just to be completely transparent, there will be a storage facility that will be located by the pump on the golf course, which is required in order to have enough water to prime the pump. So there will be a roughly 40-foot water storage container that will be on the golf course.
And we have an agreement then with the water company that they will refill the lake?
It comes from our well, so it is all groundwater. And yes, ADWR has a stipulation in their plans that allows for refilling of a lake when repairs are done, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Nadine Meese, 87945. There was an article in the paper about the walls were going to be used for fish habitat.
So yes, so we know that there are quite a few fish habitats that have been created in the lake over the 50 years that it's been around. And so the goal is that we want to replace those fish habitats. And one of the methodologies to do that is to utilize some of the wall in order to recreate those fish habitats. So there's a pretty in-depth plan on how to do that. And so it saves us cost, and we're not dumping stuff into a landfill.
Is that going to be crushed walls? Are you crushing the walls?
I'll defer to the experts on the process.
So the existing concrete lake wall that goes around the lake, instead of breaking it up and hauling it off and taking it to a landfill, and then buying rock material to build new fish habitat, instead we're going to break the shoreline up, and we'll break it up into pieces we can handle. Some of it we might have to get rid of it if it breaks into too small of pieces. But the intention is to take that broken concrete rubble from the existing concrete shoreline and use it to build new fish habitat in the bottom of the lake.
My concern with that is the walls at my house and the neighbors have a 4-inch mesh, iron mesh in
Yes.
the wall, in the concrete itself. So that will break the new liner. Those wires sticking out would break
Yeah,
the
no,
new
so
liner.
we don't, when we build fish habitat, nothing sits on top of the liner. We pour a 4-inch concrete pad across the top of the liner, and then we sit, when we build fish habitat, typically we buy and import rock material, and we sit rock on top of that 4-inch concrete pad. But here we'll be sitting the broken concrete on top of it.
Very good. I want to compliment you on your presentation. I thought it was wonderful. Answered a lot of questions. Are you doing the lagoons?
So we made the decision not to do the lagoons. We have 33 acres of lake, and the lagoons represent probably an acre or less, and therefore felt that they're probably, it wouldn't be that much of an issue. However, after we finish the lake, if for whatever reason we find out that the lagoons are leaking at an unacceptable rate, then we may have to address it. But at this point, we don't feel that it's an issue.
Okay. According to Terracon, there was a considerable leakage in the lagoons as well. Okay. The end product, if your wall was a drop wall now, you're going to walkout walls. Can you use the crushed concrete to fill in the difference? I mean, it's 10, 12 feet at my house.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, so you have a drop wall now, right?
Yes.
So then you're going to go to the walkout. You'll have to have a lot of dirt to fill in there.
No, we will show you a better section of what we propose to do, but the lake wall will look just like the lake wall looks now, or it's similar in terms of height and slope ratio that it's on. It's just the depth of water that's going to be brought up. So when we regrade the lake, we will generate dirt out of the bottom of the existing lake so that we don't have to buy imported material. So once we've drained the lake and we've gotten rid of all of the debris that's across the bottom of the lake, which will be, there's silts and organic matter that have accumulated over time, and then there's fish habitat that's down there. Once we've cleaned up all of that, we will, in the deeper parts of the lake, we will excavate soil and we will recompact and rebuild the slopes so that we get the right slope ratio. And the shoreline will be a near vertical, about 30 inches tall, some 30 to 36 inches tall, because you have about, in areas you have 12 inches above water, some areas you have 18 to 20 inches above water, just depends on your condition and where you're at. And then we'll have a sloping bench, not a flat bench, but a sloping bench that's submerged underwater. And that continues to run on a graded slope down to the bottom. So from an appearance point of view, it's going to look very similar to what it looks like right now.
You make a lot of sense. That's good. See, we don't know these things, so we stay awake at night and think of all this stuff. I'm not an engineer, but I am a swan mom. And the end product, the swans and the geese and everybody will be able to walk out of the lake onto all our properties. Is that correct?
I'm not a swan person, but I don't know all the swan rules, but we have Rick Amalfi who's going to help us work through that. So we're aware that there are swans, and we know that we have to pay special attention to them.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Dave McKay. I live on Buccaneer Way. My house apparently was a show home when the new phase came out. And I have, my dock is actually an extension of my patio. It's made out of precast double T's, 3 4-foot ones together. So they're 12 feet wide. They extend back into my yard 32 feet approximately. So I'm hoping you can work around those.
No, we've seen, we didn't get anybody in anybody's backyard, but we clearly saw what you're describing, and we understand the challenge with that and what's involved in that. And it's something we don't have an answer to right now, and we want to work with what we want to make sure we deliver a watertight, lake and lake system, and we know we have issues and challenges at docks and dock locations that have to be resolved, and it's something that we're going to work through. And in your case, where you have a dock that runs 30 feet back into your yard, we have no interest in being 30 feet back into your yard. We don't want to do that, and frankly, we can't afford to do that. It doesn't fit in this budget, so we're going to figure out how to work around that.
It cantilevers 10 feet over the lake. So.
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on elevation, because some of the a lot of the docks are cantilever docks. They're just built in different fashions. Some of them have a concrete block that has beams that cantilever out of that. I can't even tell you all the different things. We saw at least a dozen different variety of construction. But for the most part, they all end up being some form of cantilever. Some of them can be cut off and rewelded, and so that's an option. We just have to figure it out once we start getting into one dock at a time.
All right, I guess my question is going to be directed then at the RCSC, because I'm expecting that my yard is going to be what it is now when you're finished. So, and I don't think I'm going to be paying for that.
Well, I'm not sure I follow. If you're in the easement, then that's something that we'll have to address. But if it's not, then we don't plan on doing anything outside of that range.
My understanding is there's no prohibition to having things built on the easement. And so it's a shared easement.
We will have, that's the whole process. We're just starting that process now, and we will make that determination once we, determine exactly what the requirements are and who can do what. And as soon as that happens, then we will get with every homeowner and figure that out.
Okay, I'm also a part-time resident, so hopefully your schedule is going to move quick enough that I can see what I'm going to be faced with.
So the plan right now is to be done by, April or May of next year. Is that what you said, or June?
Yeah, well, but our plan is to have a 60% plan submitted by the end of May. That 60% plan will start to have this dock information on it. It might not have it all worked out. Some of what we might not be able to figure out until the lake's drained and we're able to get underneath the dock. There was a couple of fairly unique looking docks that we kind of scratched our head and tried to figure out what was going on. We were in a boat, we weren't on land. Our goal is to be feet on the ground in back of the yard so we can hopefully start to put it together. But if we can't, it might have to wait until we can, physically walk up to it. But the intention is to, and our intention would be to identify that particular dock as having that issue, and then hopefully have a hard plan for what all the rest of the docks are. So that's what we're trying to do. We want to work through these issues before we start construction. We don't want to have to try to figure all of these things out once we're in construction. There will be some things that aren't 100% determined when we start construction. But the goal would be to have that by this end of May deadline to submit that plan. And then, again, we're going to submit to RCSC, and we're going to work through. I don't have a relationship with you.
Right.
What that is I can't get involved in that, so I'm going to go through RCSC, and we're going to work with them to come to the solution. They're going to give us the direction that we need to have so we can move forward.
Well, I invite you and your superintendent there, if they want to come and buy my house anytime, sooner the better, and just take a look at the condition, and you'll be able to get a good idea of what you're faced with.
Yeah, we're gonna. I mean, we've just found out we had this assignment We are just getting started. It's literally been 2 weeks since we've been on board. Our contract's not in place, but we're working through all those issues. And we appreciate your concern to move quickly, and we want to move quickly. We need to hit these deadlines. You guys are all aware of monsoon storms and monsoon storm season. We want to start this work at the tail end of the monsoon season, which is where we're tied in. Like Bill mentioned, there's good reason to reuse water. That's a time when there's a big water use on the golf course side. So our schedule starts to make sense for a lot of reasons, and we want to make it happen. And that's what we're focused on doing.
Okay. Will you be, I noticed you've got the lake divided up into 3 sections there. Will you be finishing a section and refilling it before refilling it with water from another section, or are you going to drain the whole thing all at once and go from there?
Drain it all at once. There's no way to fill. We're not going to rebuild the lake so it can be filled in 3 sections.
Okay.
The 3 sections is just to allow us to cycle our work. We don't want to wait until 100% of the grading is done to start on the liner and the shoreline. We're able to start on the liner and the shoreline sooner, and so we want to accelerate the work and make the work go as fast as it can. Once we have enough grading done, then we want to be able to come in and start the liner and the shoreline and reinstall docks. But we can't fill the lake until all 3 phases are done. So the 3 phases are just a way for us to divide the work to make it go faster.
Okay. I think I understand that. So, all right, thank you.
Dave Benson, Conopoli. Question on the docks. If your dock is determined not to be repair or reusable, and it's taken out, that's a homeowner's responsibility to replace the dock?
So that's to be determined. So we have to really do an assessment of each one to really understand what you have. So that's going to be on a case-by-case basis in terms of what the replacement process is going to be.
Of your assessment so far, are there 10% of the docks that might be questionable?
I don't know that we can answer that at this point. I don't think we have that information.
There are a handful of docks that don't look like they've had any love and attention for a long time.
Okay.
Those are the docks that probably are difficult to take apart. For us to be able to take it apart, if it's going to fall apart when we take it apart, does it make sense to put it together? It almost makes more sense to put a new dock in than to try to take something apart and put it back together. So that's what has to be determined.
If you do have to take it apart and do a new one, is that a permit required to do that?
For a new dock, I'm not sure, to be honest, if you need a permit for that.
I don't know the answer. It's something that we will have to find out.
It's my understanding that permits don't come quickly in Maricopa County.
Yep, we understand that.
And if that is the case, then the decision to be able to apply, and again, the issue is if you're going to apply for a permit, you also need to have a timeline.
Yep. Now, as Corey stated, we're going to do the assessment, and hopefully we have a really good picture by the May-June timeframe.
Okay.
And at that point, if we feel like, a new dock is required, then, we can start that permitting process, provided that we get agreement from the homeowner that that's the process we want to take.
Okay, the May-June timeline, I'm a block captain with 15 homes. 11 of our homeowners are not here by the end of May. So are we talking Zoom? Are we talking, what kind of abilities do we have to communicate?
Whatever makes sense. We have Zoom, we have conference calls, we have, whatever makes sense for the homeowner.
Okay. And are there ways for us individually to find out what that easement line is?
You can do your own assessment, sure.
Okay.
You can pay a company to do that.
Okay, you have to pay a company. It's not something you can look up and go online to.
You can, and we're in the process of doing that, but things that were built 50 or 60 years ago, you kind of have to do a search for, the plats and what those easements are. So, we're trying to do that as well, but given the the age of the data, we felt that doing an assessment today will give us as accurate as possible so
Okay.
that there's no arguments.
As we went through the videos, we came to the one where Grand Canyon University property was there, and a comment was made about the palms that are there, or the trees that are in there. I happen to have probably a dozen 25 to 50-foot palms that I am pretty sure within 6 feet. Is that an automatic cut them out, or is that a way that the wall can be adjusted to accommodate?
That's something we'll have to address, but what we want to do is make darn sure that if we put a new wall in and spend $8 million, that there's no root system that will, impact that wall at all. So that's the issue that we would have, is to make sure that that doesn't happen. So again, this is going to be on an individual by individual basis to see exactly what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Linda Thompson, and my number is 11537. I live on Emerald Point, and most of my questions have been answered. However, I do have one of those docks that has the steel cantilever, and I think the only way that that dock can be removed is to have it cut and then resoldered. So what you're saying is that you are prepared to do that?
Yeah, that's what we currently envision doing, is to cut, remove, and then reinstall.
Okay. I have concerns about the timing of the project because of the number of snowbirds we have living around the lake. If you're planning to start this project on September 1st, a lot of people won't be back by then.
Well, that's construction. So
Right.
that's actually when hopefully the lake will be drained and we can start construction.
Right. Well, they're not going to be here between May and September, most
So
of them.
we have to get this done. I mean, we can't wait. And this plan that we have in place maximizes our economic impact to RCSC, and it minimizes the environmental impact as well. So
what are you going to do to communicate with the homeowners who are snowbirds?
So the plan is to hold meetings like this periodically. We don't know what that means. Is it every 30 days? Is it every 2 weeks? I don't know. But whatever makes sense. My goal is to communicate as much as we possibly can. But I would think that Mary Ann, and your HOA leadership will be kind of the conduit to communicate with you all. So I would hope that you guys all have, if there's different addresses and such, that's on file with them. It should be on file as well, at RCSC.
Well, I think our concern is that we'd like to know what you're doing, to our docks, to our fences.
Well, you'll know that. I mean, once we have the plan in place, every homeowner will know what we're doing with your dock. Now, you may not, if you're not here, you may not see that be enacted, but, and if you're not here, you're still going to know what's going to happen. We'll let you know what's going to happen before it happens.
Now, these easements that you talk about, do they go with the property, or do they go with the legal documents for the Viewpoint Lake?
So the easements, I'm not an expert by any means, so that's something that we're trying to determine as to what the easement really entails. So as we do the assessment,
Have you looked at our legal documents?
We have, yes, we have.
And what do they say?
So actually, Chris Herring is the one who's been doing, our operations person has been doing the research on this, so I don't have all the details.
Okay, so you don't know what the easements are?
We don't. We know some of them. Like I said, we're trying to dig up
So
old
my
data.
initial question was, do they go with the property or do they go with the lake?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Wars, and I live on 103rd Avenue. And a lot of us have asked you questions about the docks, and I appreciate your ability to answer them as best as you're able today. But I want to make sure I leave this room understanding clearly what it is we might be seeing in the future in terms of our docks, and I know others here do as well. So kind of help me make sure I'm understanding here. I'm hearing kind of two things. One is I'm hearing from the contractor that the desire is to try to find the best solution to preserve as much of our existing docks as we can, work around them in terms of rebuilding the wall, the lake wall. I'm hearing the rec center saying that there's a 6-foot easement, and although I haven't heard it directly, correct me here if I'm wrong, that there's a good likelihood that we're all going to be told if our docks have to are within this 6-foot easement and they have to come out, it may be our expense to have them rebuilt, particularly those that are cantilevered I-beams built into concrete slabs.
So what Corey states is accurate. The goal is to be able to, pull them out, pull each dock out, store them, and then put them back in to the same condition that they were removed from. Now, with respect to the easement, if there's a fence or if there's landscaping or such that's going to interfere with the construction of the new wall, that's going to have to be addressed. And if it's an easement issue, it would be a homeowner issue that would have to be addressed. Now, with respect to the docks, I don't know that there's any issues with respect to that at this point. So we won't know until they do conduct their assessment.
Okay, how would you remove and reinstall a dock that consists of a concrete slab with a series of steel beams cantilevered out over the lake?
I'm an accountant, so you're asking the wrong guy.
No, well, I'm addressing it to the.
Well, it depends on the elevation of the cantilever. They're all set at different. They're set all over the place, and if we can work underneath them, then we don't have to do anything to it. Or some of them have steps that come off. So you've got the upper beams that would probably stay in place, and then the lower beams that we may have to cut off, so that we can work underneath it and then put those lower step areas back on. So again, it depends on what it is, what the elevation of it is, and also what the condition of it is, because we're not going to take apart something that has no value, right? So that's what we have to figure out if we have that situation. But half of the docks, a third of the docks clearly have no issue with them, and we can work around them with very little, if any, effort. And the next third of the docks have some parts and pieces that need to come off of them. 10 or 15% of the docks look like they probably don't make any sense. They look like they should be removed and replaced with something new. And then the other percentage, whatever that is, another 20% or something like that, has a little bit more challenge to it, and we have to work through it. So that's my assessment is there's about a third of them that are kind of problematic for us. Some of them are problematic because I don't want to have to touch them because I know it's just going to it's going to fall apart, and I can't even put it back together to make it in the condition it's in. And then the other ones are they're going to be difficult to work with, and we're going to have to figure out how to do that. So that's kind of the buckets that they fit in, from a boat tour, 2 boat tours around the lake looking at them. And until we can do more work, we don't have any more answers than that.
Okay, so let's talk about the one that you talked about where it has the steps and you have to cut off the steps. And then if we're going to get steps back in, you'd have to weld steps back onto the existing I-beams. Now I go back to the rec center. If that's within what the rec center says is the lake is its easements, is it the homeowner's expense or to have those steps reinstalled, or is that built into the cost of the project?
So the pulling apart the docks and storing them and putting them back is all in the budget associated with RCSC paying for that expense. Now, again, I can't answer specific questions about specific docks until we see them.
No, but that's kind of where I was hoping you were going to get to at some point. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
My name's John Herrick again, but two questions. First, what control is there going to be for environmental concerns such as pollution, dust, and that kind of stuff during the construction? Because for those of us that may suffer asthma or something like that, that could be a significant issue.
We have to follow strict ADEQ guidelines while we're out there working, which means that minimal dust can leave that site.
We'll have to pull a dust control permit. We have to operate within the allowable permit restrictions for dust and dust generation. We will be primarily using water to control dust the entire time that the bottom is exposed until we get a liner down on top of it.
Okay. What about smell? Is there going to be smell from?
There's a good potential that there's going to be smell. There's also just as good a potential that it won't be a problem. Quite often it depends on weather and weather conditions. How hot is it? How much wind is there? So it's part of our planning to develop an odor control plan and to be prepared to deal as rapidly as we can with odor generating issues. They're most problematic as we drain the lake until we are able to get all the water out. Once we get the water and silt and debris material gone, we won't be making any odors from the lake and lake construction. But during that initial phase, it is an area of concern. It was communicated to us in the RFP process. It's part of our work plan to have odor control measures in our plan and be ready to address them as needed.
Okay. Now going back to the dust issue, so many times I've been by construction projects and I see a sign which says that if you have problems with dust or things like that, call this number and in order to have it rectified. Will there be a contact person that we can deal with if the dust creates a problem?
Yes.
Okay. And is that going to be RCSC or is that going to be your outfit?
It'll be me personally.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Patty Theaker, and I live at Louis the Turtle, down on Bayside and Cameo. At Cameo, there is the grate, that is ugly and unsafe as far. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, we had to rescue a bird that had gone under and took can openers and opened the top up and peeled it back, and it took 2 days, but we got the bird out. So we need some way to be able to mitigate birds getting in. Also, boat parade at Christmas time, numerous boats have ran into it because they've just now put reflectors on it, which are not substantial, to prevent people from ramming their pontoons into the thing at night if they go out at night. So I guess making it prettier and a little more safety oriented as far as, evening rides around the lake, so that it's more visible, is glow in the dark paint or whatever. And a way to, if we have to rescue an animal out of it, to not have to cut the wires, but, flip open gate or top or something. So also the liner, it's in section, I'm assuming, and how is it put together or sealed together? Is it flex paste or?
So you have two questions. That screen is the intake screen. It's our understanding that screen is the intake screen for the Lakes West Golf Course.
Right.
I haven't had any discussions other than to confirm that that's what RCSC has told us it is. I assume it sticks above grade because there's a maintenance-related issue with maintaining that screen, and that's why it is designed the way that it is. If you notice, if you look closely at it, it has a couple of hooks or eyes on the top of it that allow it to be lifted. There's a removable section in the fence rail that's next door to that that allows a truck or a truck crane to be able to swing into position to do that. I don't know how often that comes off there. I don't know.
Not in
I don't know
4
anything.
years I've been here.
I don't know anything about the
Yeah.
operation of it and why it is the way that it is.
Right.
It's a very large screen. It's larger than most screens I would see on a golf course irrigation lake, but today I don't understand all of the details of why it is what it is. Okay. I don't disagree with any of your comments in terms of it's unsightly, it doesn't look good. The top appears to be kind of concaved. I didn't notice that somebody had cut it open. We looked at it today. I didn't see that. But so that screen is actually on our scope of work to address. It's something what we have to talk to RCSC about and talk to the Lakes West Golf Course to make sure that it functions as intended. So we're going to work through that. The liner that's currently proposed, I believe it was a 30 mil. 45 mil?
30. 30?
Was it?
30.
Yeah, so it's a 30 mil reinforced polyethylene liner. So it has two liner sections with a reinforcing scrim that's placed in between the two. It's a UV stable material that can be exposed to sun for indefinite lengths of period of time. Highly puncture resistant, really is a solid lining material for this type of lake. Has a intended useful life of 40 to 50 years in terms of its lifespan.
Okay.
I would just ask that, I guess, I appreciate the saving of the bird, but if you do have issues with
I
that
called.
stuff. Oh, you did call?
Oh, I called.
Okay, all right.
It's like, nobody came.
Okay.
And they were like, what?
Who did you contact?
I called the RCSC,
The main line?
Lakeview. No, I
corporate
don't know. I
office?
just called up to RCS.
You called Barry? Okay.
Yeah, Sue, yeah, a bunch of us were out there.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you.
okay.
Ron Whitson, Tantera Point. I just need some further clarification on, since those individuals will not be present between middle of May and the end of September, the chain of communication, is that going to be through Mary Ann as far as, and if there are any questions or anything, is she going to be the key person that we're supposed to contact?
Where is Mary Ann right here? So I would envision that. I think that makes sense, Mary Ann, that they would funnel through you to me. Yeah.
You're going to be a busy person.
I got nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so if we have any questions or anything else, she's going to be answering them, huh?
Yes, please.
Okay,
I think
thank
that
you.
works. Thanks, Mary Ann. I appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Jerry Klaus, 25875. I've lived on Viewpoint Lake about 20 years or 22 years. I got to be the Lake Viewpoint president a few years back. And 15 years ago, we had hired a diver to go around the lake looking for this leak that they knew about 20 years ago, I guess. And he had flags on, he had the helmet on, and went underwater looking for a hole because the water was disappearing so fast. And we never found anything, of course. And the side of the lake, the berms, they're eroded, there's see tree roots growing in there. It seems to me like that's where all the water goes. But explain the seepage to me. Where does it go in the center of the lake? Is that liner that was dealt with put in as shot?
So all we know is that there is seepage. So,
Okay.
that was a 10 mil liner in, 50 years ago. And so my guess is that that thing is pretty dilapidated and it's probably multiple points, but it's very costly to determine that because our argument to ADWR is that the lake is leaking, but it's going back into the aquifer, right? So that shouldn't be counted against our usage. Well, they said, great, prove it. So looking into that, it was determined that it was very expensive to prove that. So we don't know where it's leaking, I guess is the long-winded answer.
Okay. So we'll find out, I guess.
I don't know that we'll find out. I think what we'll find is a liner
should
that's
stop
really
it.
just in bad shape.
The experience of doing other lakes, then after they're done, they don't have the leakage, seepage anymore?
So this is a 20-year warranty on the liner, and then it's a 40-year life expectancy, I believe, right? So
40 to 50.
Right. So and they were going through their testing process to me. It was something out of Star Wars where they electrify it or whatever, and they find pinholes and such. So, it's a pretty in-depth process to make sure that what they've done is airtight.
Yeah, I know we put Benonate in one year. We put
Didn't work. Yeah, that didn't work.
Anyway.
Yeah.
One person told me that it did work, and then I called the rec center and it said it didn't work. So
No, it did not.
Anyway, all right, thank you.
Real quick question. We're snowbirds. We're going to be leaving May. We got a boat in the water. Do we need to remove it before we're leaving? Is that in the?
I would suggest that you do that because July, unless you're going to be back in June.
No, we won't be back till.
Yeah. No, I would, or if you have a really good friend that'll do it for you, but I would recommend you pull that out.
Don't have a good enough friend that'll do that. Second question, I'm not clear. Will you be able to walk out of the lake if you happen to fall in with the new? Oh, you're shaking your head, yes. So am I to understand that it's going to ramp up to a certain point and then it's going to be 18 inches deep of water and then?
Yes.
Is that my understanding?
Yes.
So you could walk up, crawl out of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm Mary Ann Heinrich, and I'm the representative for the Viewpoint Lake homeowners. I have a couple self-serving questions, and then a few after-the-fact questions. So I am a snowbird as well, so I guess my first comment is, if you have a boat and you're not going to be here, you're a snowbird, get your boat out before you go home. That's the first thing. The dock removals, will that take place at construction beginning in September, or are you going to do that beforehand?
It depends on how quick we get rid of the water. We currently have about a 1-month period after we start to deal with wildlife relocations and continuing to remove water.
Okay.
But all of that needs to get refined. We haven't pinned everything down yet. But so right now, I don't think we show removing docks until we get out to the October, November timeframe.
Okay, so, which brings me to another question. Can we get a copy of your presentation with the dates?
So we can give you the presentation, but I don't want to put dates in there because they're not solidified yet. So at this point,
Well, that doesn't help then for people who aren't going to be here. So, yeah.
Right. So I mean, I think the dates that we've shared with you, the high-level dates are, that's the ballpark. Until we have until they do the 60, 100%, analysis. I don't really want to share dates because then it becomes, well, you said you were going to do this,
Yeah,
right?
I understand. So at that 60% point, then you would be able to give me dates?
I think.
Give us dates?
Corey, I don't know. Are we comfortable at that point, or?
We're going to give you an updated schedule. That's part of one of our items is to give you an updated schedule at that point.
Right.
it's a preliminary schedule, it's not complete.
Right.
Your concern is that people are going to go to the bank with what they see.
Correct.
And it's not going to be that finite, because some of these things we still have to work through. But we have a plan right now, and it shows removing the docks sometime later than.
I don't have a problem sharing dates when they get to the 60%
Okay.
level, as long as you understand that that things can change, right?
Sure.
Okay.
We've all been through construction
Yeah,
projects,
exactly.
we all know.
Right. Okay.
But the reality is, I fully anticipate having to come back in the summer sometime, because it's not that I don't trust you, but I don't want you working on my property without me being there, so that's why I want to know. My anticipation for the homeowners is we will try to do meetings during this time by Zoom. I think Zoom, if you're acceptable with that, Zoom is the easiest for most of the people, because it's.
Oh, you're talking about this meeting?
These types of meetings.
When I was saying Zoom, I was thinking more of it would be on the individual basis, where we have a specific issue with a homeowner that is not here, we could do Zoom. I don't know that we would do Zoom for this general meeting. It will be just in person.
Why couldn't you? I mean, it takes enough people.
Well, because we'll record them and we'll videotape them, and
But I won't be able
you
to
can
ask
see that.
questions.
Well, you can ask questions. You can send me questions, and we'll answer those.
No. Some of the questions that I wrote down came up because of conversations that I heard.
Right.
If I'm not participating in that meeting, however it is, with you and us,
Right.
I can't ask you those questions because I don't know. So if you're going to communicate with us, I think you need to real-time communicate with us. And I understand that there's a one-on-one issue, and those can be addressed individually. But if you're holding meetings on this topic, I think we all need to be included.
I can't commit to Zoom, but we can look at it.
Okay, I appreciate that. The other self-serving question is, I have a canopy on my dock, and it's a relatively new dock. Is that going to be stored with the dock?
The answer is yes, but if you want to store it,
It's
that's
big.
Okay.
I mean, it
So-
took a lot to get it up, so I'm assuming.
The answer
that-
is yes, we would store it.
Okay. All right. So now, after this is all done, now I have some general questions. Right now, West is currently getting the water from the lake, correct? You're using that?
Correct, yes.
And will that be also happening after the lake is refilled?
Yes,
And
yes.
it-
I mean, that's the whole purpose of the lake, is to store water for irrigation of the golf course.
Right, so there's not going to be any more golf courses, it's just currently, right now, the plan is just
That's correct.
West.
There's
Okay.
no plan to make any changes to the irrigation path.
Okay. And are the same wells that are currently supplying the lake going to supply it in the future?
Yes.
And then I heard you tell the gentleman before that you anticipate no seepage. I mean, there has to be a little bit of seepage maybe, or do you have any idea on what that
What was the
rate is?
percentage you guys
So
proposed?
seepage loss has a mathematical number associated with it.
Okay.
And watertight is considered 1 × 10⁻⁷ centimeters per second. There you
go.
That is a velocity. Centimeters per second is a
Right.
velocity.
Yeah.
That's how fast water can, seep through the liner material.
Okay.
It's virtually watertight.
Okay.
When the liner comes fabricated in about 72-foot wide panels from our supplier. It's manufactured in a 7-foot roll stock, and so then they take 7-foot panels and they weld those with a electrical welding machine that fuses those pieces together and is inspected and certified when it leaves their property, so all their seams are watertight. We have a field seam roughly every 70 feet. We air lance that seam, which means we apply air pressure at 50 psi to ensure that no air gets through the gap, meaning that we have a tight seam. But then when we're completely done, we have a electric, it's called a spark test, and we run it's just a squeegee that runs across the top of the liner. and it finds a hole the size of a pinprick in the liner. So it will locate holes, and we typically find on a 5-acre lake or something like that, we'll typically find 1 to 5 little tiny, very small holes that we will then patch as they're found. And then after all of that's done, before we can be signed off, we're going to fill the lake and conduct a 7-day static test where we compare the water loss of the lake to the water loss in an evaporation pan, so that, you know, whatever evaporation is a loss on the lake surface. We're not responsible for that.
Right.
But we're responsible to provide a watertight lake that meets 1 × 10⁻⁷ centimeters per second.
Okay, thank you. One last question. Your plan for the May 60%, is that when you'll know what houses have what issues?
That's our goal.
Okay,
Yes.
so at that point, the homeowners will be notified somehow. I guess working with you, Bill, will have to do
Yes,
that. Yeah.
that's the goal.
Okay,
all right? That's the
I
goal.
know nothing is in stone. I understand that. Your April date is very, pie in the sky too, so I guess we're all expecting it's going to go. But just so that we have an idea that, okay, in May sometime we need to know that something's going to happen.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, afternoon. I've got a question about the boat removal. While it's going to be our responsibility to move the boats, do you have any plans for a storage facility that we could put them in?
So did you get an email from Mary Ann on a potential option?
Not that I know of.
Let's talk after this. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I think we have an agreeable option that's,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Wise, and I live on Emerald Point. A couple of people brought up the lagoon leaking, the wall leaking, and you just said, we don't know where we're losing the water. You don't know. How do you know this is going to fix it?
We know that that's 33 acres of the leakage. So I'm not sure. I don't know exactly where. The question was, is there a hole that you know of? Is it coming from, the wall? So we're repairing the wall. We're putting a brand new liner in. So if it's going to be sealed tight, we assume that the leakage is going to stop.
Okay.
Are there any other homeowners that would like to ask a question? Okay, then I would open it up to anybody else who might have a question.
You guys make my head hurt. I cannot imagine. My only question is the bill announced earlier that there was no room at the local landfill for all this stuff that we want to get rid of, so.
No, we didn't say there was no room. It was just the landfill that we planned on using, which is very close to our facility, was no longer available.
Oh, okay.
So there's landfills that are available.
Oh, okay, then I stand corrected. I thought that it was like, what do we do, hire that guy from Virgin Air to shoot all the stuff into space or what? But we do have a landfill.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so if there's no other questions, and again, I appreciate your patience. I know this is not an easy process for any of us, and I plan on communicating as much as possible, and so thank you very much, and enjoy the rest. Oh, one more question, okay.
Jim Hanson, Tanterre Point. Parking boats in our yard, is that going to be okay with the rec center?
So it's not a rec center decision on that, but
Right now,
talk
we
to Mary Ann on that, and there is an option for you, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.